Well, welcome. Good morning. Welcome to this webinar focusing on Milan, part of a series we run thinking about financial centres of the world. I'm delighted to welcome Alessandra Perrazzelli, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Italy, who will be our guest speaker today. You may have met me before. I'm Mike Wardle. I'm the Chief Executive here at the ZN Group. And my job really today is to chair. That means I will do a very short introduction and some housekeeping, and then leave the floor to Alessandra. I'd just like to say a big thank you to our sponsors. We're very fortunate at the FS Club that we have a range of sponsors who enable us to run this webinar series and to range widely over economics, finance, technology and science. We really are grateful for their support. The programme today is very simple. As I said, my job is really to get out of the way and so we can hear from our speaker today. And we'll have maybe a 20 to 25 minute presentation from Alessandra and then the Q&A session towards the end. The way to submit a question is to find the question tab on your dashboard on screen, type in the question, that'll come to us, and we'll field those at the end. Just to say the session today is being recorded, so if you miss anything and want to go back and listen again, or if you have colleagues and friends who you think may be interested in the content, we'll be posting the video of the session in about 48 hours or so on our website. And so please do take advantage of the recording if you need to. So without any further introduction, just to say a big welcome to Alessandra Perrazzelli, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Italy. Alessandra, we're really looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mike. Very much my pleasure to be with you today. I have a few slides that could be, explaining the journey that we really have, made at Banca d'Italia in this very specific and peculiar time of our lives, where we are more and more witnessing how technology is changing the way in which the financial industry is addressing products and also internal models. So if we go to the next slide, we can start, by saying that, we found ourselves, we are an authority that, of course, supervises and regulates the market. So we found ourselves with a need of getting closer to the industry, trying to understand how to regulate these new phenomena that are becoming more and more relevant in the financial industry. So we've been putting together a sort of, three different instruments that have been over this past years, a way in which we have been meeting the industry in a different way. Banca d'Italia is based, the main office is in Rome, but we have a strong presence everywhere in Italy. And then, we'll go into the details of the innovation center that we set up in Milan. But we started a while ago with a very simple communication channel. You see it on the FinTech channel network. That was in 2017 was the first time we started to talk to the industry in a different way. Of course, you can understand it as a regulator and a supervisor. We have a way of talking with the industry, which is very much within the administrative law of the relationship between a supervisor and the supervised entity. So the FinTech channel was the first time that kind of communication happened on a different level. And this has been, very much a way in which we started to see what the market was doing, how the market wanted to talk to us about new solutions. That over time, took us to develop the innovation center that I mentioned, which is called the FinTech Milano Hub of Banca d'Italia. And this is, when lots of steps forward, it's a place where we stimulate the adoption of, the most advanced technologies, We'll look at the financial, the banking, the insurance world, and we want to very much achieve a higher level of awareness in the industry of all the opportunities that are offered by digitalization, and on the other side, understand how all of this should and needs to be regulated. And then, of course, we are part of the regulatory sandbox together with the other relevant authorities in our country. CONSOB is the security watchdog, IVAS is the insurance watchdog, and that is, again, different from what we do in the Milano Hub because it does, give to the operators a way to test everything which is innovative products, services, and business models within a regulatory context and under the supervision of the authorities. Let's go to the next slide. This is the FinTech channel I mentioned to you. We started in 2017. We had this number of interaction, about 183, and they were pretty much, in all these different areas. They came from, startups and mature companies, led to analyze 152 projects and and continue to monitor these projects from 2022 onwards. Let's go to the next slide. This is the sandbox. The sandbox, has been going now on for a couple of years, and it has always, a side where you have an early dialogue with the applicants, an application window, and then the processing of the applications, and then the monitoring. And this is a project that takes overall about a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half. And now we are in terms of the first cohort, because the sandbox has been recently created by the combined authorities under our Treasury Ministry. This now we are right now in a testing phase that should be finishing very, very soon. Testing phase of the projects that have been allowed to the sandbox. Let's go to the next slide. Here we go to the Innovation Hub of the Banca d'Italia. These are the main things that we do. The support to developing new and innovative projects, the dialogue, the importance. I was stressing that we need to dialogue with the industry in a new way compared to the past, and then the networking activity. These are the main goals of the hub. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so we have been operating, the hub has been up and running for the past 2 years. It took quite a while within our central bank to develop this new idea. It's a very interesting way of working. We'll go into that because it puts together all the different departments of the bank, and this has been also for us a very interesting way of making technology mainstream, within our organizations. While before technology had a more silent, approach. We had a department, and then eventually the department offered services to the other departments. The hub has pushed the different parts of the banks to come together and work in a combined way. So we had a first call on artificial intelligence, the second call, which is still ongoing, closing very soon, on the distributed ledger technology. In both cases, what are we looking at? We're looking at you know a contribution that both technology are giving to the improvement of the insurance payment service, banking and financial services, and and we underline the special attention that we give to governance reliability, to robust settlement mechanism, interoperability, and and security of operation, and of course consumer protection. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So, what happens when we start a call for proposals? We clearly have we accept projects from different kind of applicants. We call it the Innovation Hub, and that's where we have the banking, financial, and insurance intermediaries participating. We have an R&D hub, which is dedicated to research institutions, sector associations, and universities. And then we have the FinTech Hub. That's where we have the non-banking, firms, non-banking financial firms. Basically, it's technology providers. And when it comes to assessment criteria, of course, we give importance to the significance, to the value, and to the viability of the project, which is the relevance for the system, the scalability, how complete, how sustainable, how innovative the content of the proposed project are, and the viability, of course, feasibility, how measurable it is, and how secure. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So how does it work, for us? Of course, the hub, is strong of the experience and the skills of our colleagues. So what we do, we put together teams that have, that come, as I was mentioning to you before, from different sides of the bank. So there are different skills, different seniority, different expertise. So every single project that gets, accepted has a multidisciplinary team dedicated to it. What we provide with co-working with a very nice space in Milan where teams can get together with the applicants, with the chosen projects, and can work together in a space where there is a lot of room, physical, technological, and also culture room, to exchange and to work together on projects. We give then to the chosen projects also a network whereby the projects can be presented and known outside also of Italy. And we have been working a lot with some different jurisdictions. We will mention that. What we do not offer, though, is financial support and, of course, marketing activities, because those projects that are already at a marketing phase are not eligible for admission to the Milano Hub. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so if we look at the two different calls that we have been working with, we see that we had a number of the biggest a portion of the projects came basically from technology providers, from fintech companies, and you see that we always come at the end choosing 10 projects, 5, 3, 2, 5 for fintech, 3 for mature companies, established banking and financial insurance institutions, and 2 for the part of the for the research, the academia and association proposals. So you see that between the first and the second call, the number of proposals, projects, applications have has increased, and that also in terms of applications and in terms also of those subjects that the operators that were behind the specific projects. Let's go to the next slide. Very interesting here, you see a little bit the different sectors that have come to us. Of course, this is determined also by the subject matter of the call. So you see then in the AI, you had we had a lot of more of projects that were based on new solutions for deposits and lending, payments, of course, and then other areas like security, decentralized finance, RegTech, investment and wealth management, and crowdfunding. You see on the other side for the DLT call for proposal that was in 2022 closing now. We had a lot more sort of like fragment, there was a lot more participation in different areas of the industry, a lot in payments, of course, still good numbers in deposit and lending, investment and wealth management, but you also see asset tokenization, you also see digital identity, open banking, open finance, technology service providers, and RegTech and SupTech. So DLT clearly has brought to us sort of like projects that were supported by a chain of different operators, more subjects and also different areas of interest given the technology that was put on the call. DLT is, of course, the underlying technology that can be developed in all these areas, and that's why you see, between the two calls, a difference in the areas. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is where we are. This is our last call. We are now finishing the supported period. So we started in December, pretty much takes a year. As you can see, we'll hope to be more efficient in the next while and cut down a little bit of the time frame. But at the same token, we want to give all the support and all the attention to the projects and really help them in developing in a sustainable and sound way. So, the time that is used is actually very much appreciated by the applicants, the projects that are chosen. They feel that they really do make a journey with us, and that's very rewarding in addition to be extremely useful. So you see the in December 22 we started, and we had a time frame for application of about a month, a little bit more, and then we had the assessment that was done by us, and then the supporting period that is going to end now. Let's go to the next slide. All right. Here is the where we are, what's next. So we are closing. There will be an event where we close the second call. We give back, to the sort of like the journey that we're being doing together, and we will launch the third call for proposals. We're right now working on the item that will be launched, the special area, driven by technology that will be the matter that we want to see developed in the third call. Let's go to the next slide. It's time for Q&A. Before we get there, I just wanted to mention something that is also very interesting. I told you about the fact that when the projects are gone through our teams, they then are offered also a possibility for networking. And we've been very active at international level. We've been also closing some MOUs with some other central banks that have an equal interest in developing innovation through projects. So this has brought us to really work at international level with different jurisdictions, and we've been very active both in Zurich and Singapore point zero, and also at the Singapore FinTech Festival, where we had helped also some of our chosen, projects and companies to showcase. So that's something also extremely relevant for, particularly for that side of the fintech companies that probably do not have yet the strength, the funds, and to be going and showcasing such interesting uh, you know, um, places like Singapore and Zurich. So that is also something that gets very much appreciated by our projects. And Mike, I stop here so that we can have some time for questions if there are.
Well, thank you very much indeed. How to regulate for innovation is a really interesting topic, one we're particularly interested in. I just wondered, what do you think you've learned? I mean, what are the main learning lessons that you think you've learned through this process of developing the stages of proposals?
Well, I think that, the main, when I talk to my colleagues, we're following the projects very, very closely. Um, the main issues that we see is that one that, we clearly do not have. We're starting now in the Eurosystem through the rules that that we are now implementing in our jurisdictions, but clearly there was a vacuum in terms of the regulatory area whereby lots of these new services and some of these innovations didn't have a regulatory house. There was no way that we could stretch the existing regulation in order to give some clarity in terms of how you get into the market, what are the requirements, what are we expect from you. So I think that the main point, if I look from our viewpoint, is one of understanding better also how to develop these new rules. These new rules will have to be then implemented in a way which is operational. So besides the written words, I mean, you then have to confront, we are that the authority that gives also authorizations to come into the market. And once you come, as you know, into one of the EU countries, then you can work through your passport. You can be active all over the Eurosystem. So that is something that gives you a lot of responsibility in terms of understanding exactly who's coming in. So through these projects, I mean, there's still more an embryo clearly of what can be then developed. I was just mentioning the fact that we are at an early stage. We do not work with projects that are already at a prototype stage, okay? Because then our hat changes. So the hat of, the regulator supervisor comes in. So we do not work with those, but it's very interesting to see how you push them at a place at a time where then they can go out in the market, get, proper funding and become operators.
Thank you very much. Shane Drinian has a question. Just he's reflecting that the United States appears to be a step ahead of Europe in terms of nurturing tech startups and tech giants. And just wondering what financial centers in Europe, such as Milan, do to compete in that space, competing against US firms and US regulation.
Well, this is a very it's a very interesting question because if we look at the way in which the market is developing, we see that technology gets produced mainly outside of Europe and on the other side of the ocean on both sides. So it's something that comes from the US but comes also from China. And clearly that's where the main technology have been running up for a number of years, coming through the big tech, coming from the experience of social media, coming from the supply chain that has been put together by some of these big big tech providers. And in Europe, we are, uh, creating less technology, but we are, of course, trying to compete, in terms of also making sure that our system is safe and sound. And I was when I was in Singapore, there was someone um, came from another regulator that says something that made me think. He said, "Yeah, technology comes from outside of Europe, but at the end of the day, when Europe, kicks in and starts regulating, then everybody else follows." All right. So it's really that, we really are looking more at regulating markets and competition that comes from different sectors into also the European Union with a different sort of perspective. We want to maintain financial stability. We want to protect consumers. And we also are interested in looking at how these big tech are moving into the financial system. All right. Most of these big tech today, they sport, authorization that makes them also active in the banking and the financial world. So banks, of course, come to us, and they say, well, where is the level playing field? They are not subject to prudential supervision, which is that kind of supervision that, gives them banks a lot of work to do on their level of capitals, on their level of, the security that they can offer, the application of all these rules that are, a burden to banks, that they're not applicable to some of these entities. So these are the big questions, that we're addressing right now. But there is clearly a technology creation, you know, um, uh, issue with Europe that cannot match. Very, I don't see this, being matched for a long time, in fact.
Alpaslan Budak has asked a question just on the application process, whether you invited applications from outside Italy or was it all within Italy? In other words, is there international interest in what the bank is doing?
The applications came from all over. So we had a majority of Italians, but in the second call, we had a good 14% coming from abroad. And when I say abroad, I'm talking about the UK, I'm talking about the Asia countries, and some Europeans. So it's international, it's all in English, and we welcome applications from other countries.
Thank you very much. Shane Dwinny has come back just asking how you've been working with other central banks in Europe, for instance, the Bank of England, but also other central bankers. Is there the beginnings of a development of an international network here?
Well, for instance, I can mention the fact that now in the development of the third call, we have launched a sort of like a um, some sort of a exchange of ideas with other central banks, trying to understand what they were seeing as challenging, and interesting for a third call. So with some banks, we have a closer relationship. We signed some MOUs. We did it with the Banque de France. We're talking to the German central bank. we were, unfortunately, the war stopped us, but we were working with Israel. Right now, we're trying to resume with the Israeli central bank was trying to resume those relationships, but they need some time. They're clearly busy with other issues right now. And we talk, we have a very good exchange with the Singaporean authorities, with the MAS. So all of this, and also interested in developing more and more interchange. Right now, what it's interesting for us is to look at projects together and ideas together. Also, it allows us to understand the level of progression, certain technologies throughout the different jurisdictions, inside and outside EU.
Thank you. And Fabrizio Caruso, who's based in Singapore, is very interested you attended the FinTech Festival. And just how do you see the Asia Pacific market, and how central is that to the Bank of Italy's interests?
Well, we've been now in Singapore two times at the FinTech Festival, and colleagues have been, many other times. We are developing now a number of closer links with that market, and with particularly with the Italian companies being established there. So we're very interested in keeping on working with Singapore. We're seeing that there is a lot of interest from the companies that we've been following, and it's clearly like a very, at this time, a very interesting place to be involved with.
Is indeed. I was wondering about sort of wider regulation. One of the things that we've have been thinking about innovation and regulation is that the financial regulator can't do everything. In other words, you're not responsible for merger acquisition policy, you're not responsible for employment law, and all the other things which have an impact on growing an innovative market. And just wondering, how closely do you work with other regulators in Italy that have different responsibilities?
Well, the main partner, we have two main partners basically. One is the insurance, authority, and the other one is the market watchdog. Those two are clearly, involved in a number of the issues that we're looking at with a different perspective. But in particular, right now, because of the MiCA regulation that is, coming into force in the European Union, we're working together with the security watchdog Consob in Italy, to understand also not only the subject matter, but first of all the subject matter, and then how we split, sort of like the our supervisory activities with them. So the work that we do with them is really, like, at this point, particularly intense, because we're moving into uncharted waters, and we need to stay very close also, to see how the market is developing, and how our intervention, our activities needs to be very much coordinated at this point of time. So I think that, this is an interesting reflection, in fact, because I think that technology is also pushing regulators to work closer together. I think that this is at the beginning of a process. The market is going to be very different in a few years. And so I think that at some point the legislator will have to rethink also how do you divide, among the regulators, among the different authorities, the mandates.
Yes, I think that's something that is being faced by many regulators across the world, about how to look at the new world, which isn't neatly divided as it might have been in the past. Um, just a question about the place of consumers and consumer benefits, and how far or what weight do you give to consumer benefit in analysing the proposals that you're working with?
Well, we have that very much in mind, in terms of we created like a couple of years ago a specific department within the Italian Central Bank that looks after consumers from a different point of view, points of view, and also we have been working a lot on financial education and digital education. Some of these solutions and what we see, being developed already in the market requires a level of digital and financial education, which needs to be brought up, particularly in those, if you look at the different approach that, different generations have towards these issues. So while financial education really covers pretty much, all the population, everybody needs to know more. Only recently we have in Italy EduFin as part of the curricula in schools. This happened only very, very recently and needs to be implemented. So that is a sort of more horizontal issue. When we come to digital literacy, we see that it's very much linked to also the demographic of the consumer population. Um, we're very much interested in developing projects that have a specific focus on consumer protection from many, different angles. But this one, the angle of financial education and digital education for us is a priority as we see the market moving, as we see new operators coming in the play. We need to have consumers who are a lot more aware of what they encounter, how they deal with new products, and also how they deal with technology as they buy and sell, as they save and acquire. So I think that is one of the main sort of like requirement for the projects that are coming in through our innovation center.
And I guess a sort of final question from me is if you had a crystal ball and you were looking into the future, um, what's your prediction as to what might be the most significant technology in finance going forward?
Well, right now it's AI, Mike. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it's amazing. We're looking at it. We are experimenting in the Bank of Italy with AI at lots of different levels. We see outside, we see what comes from the industry. We see research centers being extremely active in that area. Is a fascinating technology that has so many then different vibes in different parts of our lives, or from employment to financial services, from all sorts of industries that are developed. They're presented here in your slide. I mean, we are really facing a revolution that needs to be understood and needs to be governed in order for being a benefit to everyone. We're very keen also looking at absence of discrimination as we moved into this new technology driven world. That's something as a central bank that it's pretty much one of the most um, sort of important areas for us.
And I think in London we're developing an ethical AI initiative, which is an initiative of the Lord Mayor, where we're developing training both for management who are
Yes.
using the application of AI in their businesses, but also for computer developers to think about the ethics of AI as part of the mix going forward. We are, I'm afraid, almost out of time. So thank you very much. Thank you again to our sponsors. We really are really appreciative of the support you give us to enable us to run these sessions. And just by way of looking forward to forthcoming events, tomorrow we have a session on computational medicine and digital twins improving medical care. And we'll find out all about that if you come along to the webinar. On Monday, talk about entrepreneurship in the City of London. And then on Tuesday next week, employee share ownership as a topic for those who are interested in that. So just remains for me to say thank you very much to you, the audience, for coming. Thank you particularly to Alessandra. It's been a real pleasure to have your take on innovation and regulation. And normally I could throw open the hall for a round of applause. We can't do that online, but yeah, I assure you that everyone here has welcomed and been very grateful for your contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you to the audience, and good luck with your very interesting seminars.
Thank you very much.